Namaskar. Welcome to the Gandhi Katha. But due to the technical problems that we faced, we are delayed and we are very sorry about it. We will play the video message by the Honorable Ambassador Srimati Ruchira Kambojji.
Be the change that you wish to see in the world. This immortal and timeless message of Mahatma Gandhi resonates with the same strength and resilience as it did in the early 20th century and as we continue to commemorate his 150th birth anniversary celebrations. Needless to add, Gandhiji stands for more than a symbol for his own country. His name travels around the world every day, so much so that the name Gandhi is now a cliché. He has been responsible for inspiring some of the most powerful thinkers within the world, including Rabindranath Tagore. And I quote, "Who else has so unreservedly accepted the vast masses of the Indian people as his flesh and blood? Truth awakened truth." Albert Einstein stating that Gandhi was the most enlightened political man of our time. Will Durant stating that Gandhiji was marked by gentleness, disinterestedness, simplicity of soul, and forgiveness of enemies. We have the astonishing phenomenon of a revolution led by a saint. And who better to speak to us about all this than Dr. Shobhana Radhakrishna, a globally renowned Gandhian, recognized for her contribution to literature, social service, and her work on Mahatma Gandhi. I congratulate her for this initiative, and I now have the honor to hand over the podium to her. Over to you, Dr. Shobhana.
Thank you, Honorable Shri Ambassador Srimati Ruchira Kambojji, for your kind message. Namaskar and welcome to the Gandhi Katha during the 150th birth anniversary commemoration of Mahatma Gandhi, which incidentally is also the 150th birth anniversary of Kasturba Gandhi, who was just 6 months older than him and whose contribution is in making Mohan into the Mahatma is unparalleled. I pay my humble obeisance to the Matru Shakti, to the 50% of us, the women, all around the globe. And we, the Gandhi Jan, are celebrating this 150th birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi and Kasturba Gandhi as Bapu 150. I am grateful to Ambassador Srimati Ruchira Kambojji, Shri Krishnendu and his colleague for hosting the online Gandhi Katha amidst the challenging times of coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic to learn from Mahatma Gandhi's contribution to public health emergencies, his practices of preventive health care, wellness of body, mind and spirit for coping up and staying safe physically, mentally, emotionally and spiritually during and after the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic, which has affected the entire humanity. We need to learn from all of you in the Kingdom of Bhutan who have also contained the pandemic so very efficiently. In Bhutan, prayers and the ceremonies are being offered on a daily basis to ward off the threat of coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic. The Himalayan Buddhist kingdom's response, led by science and quick preventive action, has been fortified by its traditional communal values and a strong sense of community. What Bhutan has quickly learned is that while globalization and science are to be embraced, it should also look to its heritage to survive in these troubling times. Just like what Mahatma Gandhi had advised, and I convey my warm wishes to the people of the Himalayan Buddhist Kingdom of Bhutan who have joined today online for this Gandhi Katha. We stand in solidarity with you all in our common fight against COVID-19 pandemic. Gandhi Katha is based on the ancient Indian oral tradition of Katha or story or storytelling. The Kathas are an Indian tradition, usually with songs with narration from our ancient scriptures. In a way, Gandhi Katha is unique because all the Kathas in India are the stories of people who lived thousands of years ago. This is the first Katha of its kind about a person who lived and walked amongst us in our present days. The greatest scientist of the first half of the 20th century, Albert Einstein, had said about him that generations to come will scarce believe that such a man in flesh and blood ever walked on this earth. In today's Gandhi Katha, Srimati Swati Bhagat and Sri Deepak Kalra will be singing the bhajans and the dhun. The technical support and the PowerPoint presentation are by Dr. Ravi Chopra. The lyrics of the Gandhi Katha dhuns, which convey Gandhiji's messages and thoughts beautifully, have been composed by late Sri Narayan Desai ji, who is also my mentor. I am very grateful to all of them. Mahatma Gandhi had said that the key to good health is prayer, meditation, nature cure, nutritious food, vegetarian food, clean water, fresh air, physical and mental exercise, amongst other things, for living in harmony with nature. In short, during and after the pandemic, we need to invest heavily in preventive measures for self-care and nurture the not so sick. There are three very difficult situations that are happening right now. The first is the pandemic of coronavirus COVID-19, which is causing immense physical stress, mental as well. And the second is the financial crisis, which is also causing a lot of physical and mental anguish. And the third is fear and anxiety, fear of death, fear of existential crisis and panic that is causing all of these stress. The lesson of the pandemic is the lesson is very simple. When one member of the family falls sick, the entire family is affected, and soon the community is affected, the nation is affected, and then other communities in other nations in this globalized world. The well-being of one individual has an impact on people on the other side of the globe. This is true for every action of ours. For whatever situation you are in right now, ask yourself one question: what am I grateful for? And as soon as you ask yourself, you will get the ideas, the pauses, the sensations, the images, the feelings and thoughts that will alleviate your stress. What we eat, what we buy, what we think, and what we do have reverberations and repercussions on all life on earth. It is this anubandha, this interconnectedness, that sustains all life on earth. We are all in this together as one human family, and we choose to see whether we choose to see it or not. The current COVID-19 pandemic is a wake-up call for everyone, for in every country, big and small, rich or poor, developed or developing. It has opened our eyes to the fragility of the very existence of human beings. Last year, I visited 33 countries during Gandhi 150 and gave 148 talks and Gandhi Katha. I wanted to visit your beautiful spiritual Buddhist kingdom, and it gives me great pleasure today to connect online with the people of the Royal Kingdom of Bhutan. Common Buddhist links have provided long-term support to India-Bhutan diplomatic relations and for the regional order, and now with the new road, it will be even more so. According to the leading thinker of Thimphu, Venerable Dashokarma Ura, who conceptualized the idea of gross national happiness for Bhutan, the tradition of Buddhist teachings, especially that of the 8th century teacher Guru Padmasambhava, serves as a firmer ground for all our ties. The ancient teacher Guru Padmasambhava is considered to be the founder of Tibetan Buddhism and is known to have spread the message of rationality of the Buddha to the entire Himalayan region, including Bhutan. The journey of Buddhism northwards from the Indian plains, as well as the process by which it took root in the Trans-Himalayan region, is well known. I offer my deep obeisance to Guru Padmasambhava. According to my understanding, Mahatma Gandhi's life was an epic of faith and endeavor. His faith was in truth, the ultimate and reality of truth, and he endeavored to attain it through non-violence throughout his life, till the very last breath. Gandhiji's adherence to truth, non-violence, and purity of means has inspired me to give Gandhi Katha so that people can put their hearts into understanding Gandhiji, get inspired to learn from his spiritual, ethical, and moral transformational leadership, his spiritual life, revolutionary thoughts, actions, and his lifelong service to humanity against all forms of injustice. Gandhiji used to begin and end his day with prayers. These were prayers from all the religions of the world, Sarva Dharma Prarthana. Gandhiji's internal core comprised of the essence of all the religions, one that he had acquired from long study and reflection. The devotional poetry of the poets, saint poets of the world, that he had heard, sung and absorbed since childhood, and which he learned as he transformed himself, made up a significant part of the life of his soul. The voice of the saints captured to him the essence of world culture in a medium that was available to all persons. He believed that the Vaishnava Jana to Tene Kahiye, his favorite bhajan by Saint poet Narsingh Mehta, described the characteristics of a Jnana Yogi, the philosophical mystic, Karma Yogi, the active mystic, and characters of a Jnana Yogi and the Bhakta devotee, and Sthita Prajna, the one whose understanding is secure, who is of steadfast wisdom. We see all these traits in Mahatma Gandhi. And this everything, when the hymns and the poets' composition is described in people's language, it reaches directly to people's heart. The essence of this was nourished by the devotional poetry which is searched through the philosophies in the world religion through his intellect, but absorbed the teachings through his heart. The bhajans and hymns came to him naturally without effort, and he saw them as a means of reaching out to people with his philosophy of all religions, equality of all religions, of resolving conflict through interfaith dialogues or interreligious dialogues. He said that ultimately all the religions point to the same truth of compassion, love, and forgiveness, and that everyone must study the essence of all the religions in an attitude of perfect reverence and have friendship and respect for the people of different religions and diverse cultures. All of Gandhiji's friends were from different religions and diverse backgrounds from around the world. Hence, one of his very important legacy is conflict resolution through interfaith dialogues. Reginald Arthur Reynolds, a British writer, a Quaker, and anti-colonial activist, lived in Gandhiji's Sabarmati ashram from 1929 to 1931. He was so impressed by Gandhiji's vitality, his vision, his honesty, tactical and strategic abilities, his personal charm, his sense of humor, his logical and analytical mind, yet capable of real affection and the scorching passion for truth. Today, I would like to share with you the excerpts from the all religious prayers or the Sarva Dharma Prarthana that used to take place in Gandhiji's ashram every morning and evening. Please join me in the Sarva Dharma Prarthana.
ईशावास्यमिदं सर्वं यत्किञ्च जगत्याजगत् तेन त्यक्तेन भुञ्जीथा मा गृधः कस्य स्विद्धनम्। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुसाक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम कुल हुवल्लाहु अहद अल्लाहुस समद लम यलिद वलम यूलद लम यकुल लहू कुफुवन अहद
Gandhiji used to remain positive under all circumstances, and that was his main trait. He had faced many challenges in his life. I think as the world is reeling under the impact of coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic and everyone is affected, it is important to face it humbly, with reverence to the virus, gratitude and surrender to the forces of the universe which are beyond our control, fearlessly, intelligently, and with a positive outlook towards life. The more positive we, the ordinary people, will be, the sooner we'll be able to take this situation in an auspicious direction. For Gandhiji, this was his way of life. Perhaps the greatest source of strength for Mahatma Gandhi was in his faith in God. Truth was the deepest and the most complete form of God. That faith gave him the constant awareness that he had to be nothing but an instrument in God's hands. He was to go wherever he was led. For him, the guidance of God constituted two things. One, he had to walk on the path enlightened by truth to him in whatever measures and form. Two, he had to constantly gaze inwards through introspection. And this he did through self-introspection, self-examination and self-purification. Constantly he repeated a question to himself, and that question has been asked in our Indian civilization since the past 5,000 years. The question is, Ko Aham? Who am I? What am I? And what is the purpose of my life? The answer came to Gandhiji that the purpose of life undoubtedly is to know oneself, or self-realization, or Atma-Jnana. We cannot do it unless we learn to identify ourselves with all that lives, all the creatures of the universe. The sum total of that life is God. Hence, the necessity of realizing God living within every one of us. The instrument of this knowledge is boundless, selfless service. And that, in other words, is the purpose of life, to serve others. The deeper the faith, the greater was the endeavor for Mahatma Gandhi. He said truth is God. सत्य ही परमेश्वर है. Faith in truth led Mahatma Gandhi to two other realizations. If God is omnipresent, then truth is omnipresent too. If each human being were an aspect of God, then each person is capable of goodness. Each person is capable of being truthful, and each person is capable of doing good to others. His endeavor throughout his life was devoted to the search of that element of truth, to awaken it and nurture it, and that is the reason why he could feel oneness with everyone. For most of us, this realization does not come easily. It takes a whole lifetime to understand. But Gandhi understood it very, very early and rather easily. Because of this understanding of oneness, Gandhiji did not have any enemies. He did not want to settle any scores with anyone, and he did not want to take any revenge. He merely wanted to extend his love, compassion, and respect to everyone. He respected individuals as individuals without attaching any labels, and that was another of his traits. And during this Gandhi Katha, I will be talking about the traits of Gandhiji. I will not be able to cover the entire traits, but some of the traits which, if you understand, imbibe, and apply it in your conduct, you will transform yourself. And Gandhiji's message to the world on the vital question of health and well-being is very important and critical. During this time, at least, of the coronavirus pandemic, and for all times, to him, the study of this question was part of the service of, and that remained with him throughout. His message, or if we sum it up, it is only to knowing to care, summed up his life. His message was simple, easy to follow, still very simple, still very easy to follow. It encouraged every Indian to respect simplicity, voluntary self-control or sanyam, reduction of wants, follow the Indian traditions, cultural practices, and the values taught by our ancestors, our seers and sages through Ashtanga Yoga, through Ayurveda, for living in harmony with nature, and through treating oneself by nature cure. His attire represented his message to lead a simple life of voluntary poverty. His teachings included instructions on the manner of dress, personal health and hygiene habits, of dietetics, of the values and the observances, and making choices that reflect our nation's true spirit. In these times of coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic, which has engulfed the entire world, and as all of us are reeling under its impact in every corner of the world, it is time to learn from Gandhiji, who had said, "My life is my message." Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi had spent his first 18 years from 1869 to 1888 in India, where the seeds of spirituality were sown. From 1888 to 1891, Mohandas went to London as a student to study law, and he was of 19, 20, 21 years old. But during that stay, he expanded his vision and understanding and wisdom by reading the works of the great philosophers and poets of the West, and interacted with great reformers and thinkers when he became the member of the Vegetarian Society and that was already there. But he also studied the life of the Gautama Buddha and the Bhagavad Gita also at that age. Not only did he become a barrister in London, he also learnt the lessons of citizenship. In South Africa, Gandhiji did his sadhana or penance from 1893 to 1914, where he spent close to 20 years of his life. His life was transformed after the incident at the Pitamarisburg station from that of an individual barrister Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi to a societal Gandhi Bhai, and he gave the world a novel way of fighting injustice, and he called it Satyagraha, which is one of his first legacies to humanity. Satyagraha is using truth force, love force, and soul force to establish justice through self-suffering and sacrifice to melt the hardest of the hearts of the adversaries through non-violence. Dr. Gene Sharp, American political scientist and writer on non-violent struggle and the founder of the Albert Einstein Institution, drew very many ideas and inspirations from the thinking of Mahatma Gandhi. He said, Gandhi also exhibited a remarkable sense of political strategy in his implementation of non-violence on a mass scale. His approach to non-violence was based on the moral principle of refusing to use violence against opponents. In 1904, in South Africa, after reading John Ruskin's Unto This Last, Barrister Mohandas Gandhi completely transformed his life and started leading a community life of self-reliance, voluntary self-control, poverty, bread labor, and Sarvodaya, the welfare of all. In his life, he acknowledges the influence of three mentors. One was Kavi Raichand Bhai in India, who taught him non-attachment or anasakti. Second was John Ruskin, who through his book transformed his life. And third was Count Leo Tolstoy, whose book Kingdom of God is Within You impressed him very much, and he carried on his correspondence with him. Of course, they had never met. So Gandhiji established 4 ashrams in his lifetime. 2 in South Africa, known as Phoenix Settlement, which he established in 1904, and the Tolstoy Farm in 1910. And then when he came back to India in 1915 at the age of 45, he established 2 more ashrams in India. Some of you must have visited the Sabarmati ashram in Ahmedabad in Gujarat, which Gandhiji had established on 17th June 1917, and the Sevagram ashram, where Kasturba Gandhi and Mahatma Gandhi lived in poverty like the common villagers of India from 1936 onwards. This was his ideal of a non-violent, face-to-face society for Sarvodaya or welfare of all through constructive programs, which is his second gift to humanity. Constructive program was for building India from roots upwards, from bottom upwards, so that everyone gears up for the struggle in freedom and establishes self-respect, justice and dignity. I am happy to inform you that I was born in Gandhiji's last ashram, which is the Sevagram ashram, and my father was inspired by Gandhiji from his childhood and joined the non-violent struggle, and later on started living in Sevagram to follow Gandhiji's vision. Even after Gandhiji passed away in 1948, for more than 5 decades, my parents and all of us have continued to walk on the path that Gandhiji has shown to humanity. It is not only for our family that the path has been shown, it is for the entire humanity. So what I am telling you today is based on what my parents have told me, my own experience and understanding of Mahatma Gandhi, who has inspired a generation of people who have followed his path and continue to follow it today. Ivan Illich, the Croatian-Austrian philosopher who visited Sevagram ashram in 1978, sat in Gandhiji's hut in Sevagram and wrote to the world that this hut of Mahatma Gandhi demonstrates to the world how the dignity of the common man can be brought up. It is a symbol. It is also a symbol of happiness which we can derive from practicing the principles of simplicity, service and truthfulness. Ashram life was a life of strict control from 4 a.m. to 9 p.m. It was a simple life, of course, a simple life of voluntary self-control, punctuality, discipline, promptness, minimalistic living, living in harmony with nature, following the environmental credo of Gandhiji of minimum use of resources by recycling, reusing and reducing the wants, treating oneself through nature cure from all the 5 elements that are available to everybody, following a vegetarian frugal diet, caring and sharing sharing the sorrows and joys of everybody, being ever vigilant, walking. He used to walk for 18 kilometers per day in the morning and evening, following the practice of cleanliness, hygiene and sanitation, and spinning and weaving, bread labor, disciplined life, constructive programs, and above all, using every minute of his time in the service of humanity. As all of us know, that time is the only non-renewable resources that all of us have if we are lucky, and we must use time very, very carefully like Gandhiji did. He is the role model for punctuality. So this one thing, if people start learning also from him, they'll do a great service to themselves. Gandhiji's unique practices of silence, prayers, fasting and spinning gave him the internal strength. He continued to practice his experiments in health and wellness through nature cure, diet, hydrotherapy, sun bath, mud packs and observing silence for one whole day. He used to start mauna or silence on Sunday night up to Monday night. The ashram inmates not only participated but modified and validated all his practices and still continue to practice it till today, like I am also doing, pointing to their relevance. Gandhiji has given 3 gifts to humanity. The first one, as I said, is Satyagraha, about which many people or almost everybody knows, though they do not know all the aspects of it. The second is the constructive program or Rachanatmak Karikram in Hindi, about which very few people know and very few people are practicing. And third is the Ekadasha Vrata or the 11 observances for leading a moral ethical life of Sanyama. These were the rules in the ashram, and the ashram inmates through this observance of the vratas or the observances led a life of moral, spiritual and voluntary self-control. In the ashram prayers of daily morning and evening, the first verse from our Upanishad, Ishopanishad, the sacred text of India, used to be recited, and that is Isha Vasyamidam Sarvam Yat Kincha Jagatyan Jagat Tena Tyaktena Bhunjitha Ma Gridha Kasya Svidhanam, that everything in this universe belongs to God. Nothing belongs to you. Enjoy the objects of the world in an attitude of perfect non-attachment. Enjoy it with a feeling of sacrifice, taking to the extent that is necessary for you, and leave the rest for others. In the society, never ever crave the possession of others. Nothing really belongs to you. Now we will sing a Gandhi Katha dhun which describes the same sentiments, and that is in Hindi. Na yah tera, na yah mera, Ishwar ka yah raj hai. Very few people know that as a couple, Gandhiji and Kasturba Gandhi contributed immensely 123 years ago to public health emergencies and service of humanity. Gandhiji wanted to become a doctor from a very young age, but his family wanted him to pursue something else and he became a barrister. But his inner calling or Swadharma, according to the Indian sacred scripture Srimad Bhagavad Gita, was to serve others. Gandhiji dedicated his life to serving the entire humanity, which started from his early childhood by serving his father. In 1896, Barrister Mohandas Gandhi took training in nursing in Cottage Hospital in South Africa and volunteered in taking care of the patients. That was his real inner calling to serve others. In 1897, he nursed and cared for a leprosy patient who had come to his house in Durban, and he took him inside, bandaged him, washed his wounds with potassium permanganate, and again made him stay in the house till others objected, and later on he established a hospital with the help of his friend Parsi Rustamji, and then all the other leprosy patients were admitted there. So this way he continued in India also. The leprosy eradication was one of the constructive programs that he started and continued and trained people in looking after leprosy patient. In the Second Anglo-Boer War from 1888 to 1902 and in the Zulu uprising of 1906, he established the Natal Indian Ambulance Corps along with the Free Indians and the Indian Indentured Labour, and acted as stretcher bearers for wounded warriors. And that he also did when in 1904 there was an outbreak of bubonic plague in Johannesburg. Both the couple rushed to take care of the patients. Firstly, they segregated the patients, quarantined them, and put them up in an empty godown and treated them through nature cure. Gandhiji and Kasturba, when they set up the Sabarmati ashram in India after their return, a very great pandemic struck India or the world, and that was the pandemic of the last century, which is known as the Spanish influenza pandemic of 1918. During that time, he opened up the Sabarmati ashram as quarantine center, treated the patients through nature cure, gave them a simple diet to boost immunity, and told the families to maintain physical distancing, counseled them to remain positive, and take care of each other during the time of this Spanish flu pandemic. And Gandhiji had said on November 10th, 1918, that our ancestors could build such strong bodies in the past, but today we are reduced to a state of miserable weakness and are easily infected by noxious germs moving about in the air. There is only one, and only one really effective way by which we can save ourselves from them, even in our present broken state of health, and that is the way of voluntary restraint or sanyam, and of imposing a limit on our acts, desires, and wants. Gandhiji used to call himself the commander-in-chief of the non-violent army, and always used to be in the front line during any public emergencies, any kind of potentially dangerous situations. This was one of his traits. And another trait was that he used to treat all work as God-given work, and used to work with complete reverence in the attitude of yajna or selfless service and sacrifice. Arnold Toynbee, the British leading historian and philosopher of history, said very famously that the generation into which I happen to have been born has not only been Hitler's generation in the West and Stalin's in Russia, it has also been Gandhi's in India, and it can already be forecast with some confidence that Gandhi's effect on human history is going to be greater and more lasting than Stalin's or Hitler's. So I will play now the Gandhi Katha done in Hindi about Gandhiji's philosophy of truth, non-violence, purity of means combined together in the form of Satyagraha, and the dhun is Lagire Lagan, Satya Ahimsa mein man mera magan.
Lagire lagan, Satya Ahimsa mein man mera magan, Satya Ahimsa mein man mera magan, Lagire lagan, Satya Ahimsa mein man mera magan, Satya Ahimsa mein man mera magan, Satya Ahimsa se satyagrah seekha, Satya Ahimsa se satyagrah seekha, sarva prakar ke bhaya mojan, sarva prakar ke bhaya mojan, Satya Ahimsa mein man mera magan, Lagire lagan, Satya Ahimsa mein man mera magan, Satya Ahimsa mein man mera magan.
Gandhiji was very interested in health and wellness and remained ever vigilant about his health and well-being of others. He said that our lifestyle should be such that it should not let any disease come anywhere near us, and every person is responsible for looking after his or her body, mind and spirit impeccably. Gandhiji extended his inner calling of living a healthy and moral life in harmony with nature to nature cure, and maintained that health and wellness means one should keep the body healthy without any disease and must carry on day's routine without getting tired. Gandhiji said that to have perfect understanding of our bodies, everyone must understand that it is made of the 5 elements that are found in nature. All that is what has been told to us by our ancient seers and sages, and that's why Gandhiji always said that I have nothing new to teach. Truth and non-violence are as old as mountains. All the great teachers of the world have already walked on that path, so that path is available to all of us. So those 5 elements are air, water, fire, earth and space. For the wellness of our bodies, the harmony between all these 5 elements is very necessary. Our ancient Indian scriptures tell us that mana evam manushyanam karanam bandhamokshayoh bandhaya vishayasaktam muktam nirvishayo smritaha. For man, the mind is the cause of bondage, and the mind is the cause of liberation. Mind absorbed in sense objects is the cause of bondage, and the mind detached from the sense objects is the cause of liberation. And this is from Amrit Bindu Upanishad, the 2nd verse, which is part of the 5 Amrit Bindu Upanishads from the Atharva Veda, which has given us the system of Ayurveda. For Gandhiji, the outside universe was but a reflection of the inside universe. He repeated time and again that the universe is compressed in the atom. There is not one law for the atom and another for the universe. It is not just the eye of the poet that enabled him to see a world in a grain of sand and a heaven in a wild flower. Hold infinitely in the palm of your hand an eternity for an hour. But an actual spiritual experience that gave him the conviction that the moral principles have no meaning unless they can be made to serve as guide of conduct in the daily affairs of man. The first element is air, which is all pervasive and surrounds us totally. We cannot live without air and will suffocate. Gandhiji said that people do not know how to breathe properly, and therefore they should be taught breathing exercises and pranayam, and must keep the respiratory tract clean, must keep the rooms well ventilated, and sleep in the open as much as possible. The Sanskrit proverb says, Yatha pinde tatha brahmande. You are the universe within the universe. As with the self, so is the universe. What is going on within you is same as what is going on in the universe. From the mind-body perspective, Gandhiji's standpoint was that health is an optimal integration of body, mind, spirit, soul, and environment. Environment is our external body. During the COVID-19 pandemic, enveloping ourselves in the rhythm and forms of nature can be transformative and healing. Ayurveda, the ancient healing tradition of India, recommends spending time in nature every day. Doing so allows us to experience the wonderment of this existence with all our senses. Nature allows us to shift our attention beyond the domain of our ego and to recognize that we are inextricably connected to the universe. There is a nice Vedic expression which says, as is the atom, so is the universe. As is the microcosm, so is the macrocosm. As is the universal body, so is the cosmic body. As is the universal mind, so is the cosmic mind. Yoga and meditation, that is Ashtanga yoga and meditation, combines and integrates all components of health, and Gandhiji was a strong believer in nature cure, the Ayurveda, the Ashtanga yoga as well. His experiments with nature cure were always on himself. He also advised his friends and disciples to follow these remedies and treat themselves through nature cure, and he cured 30,000 patients through nature cure. Gandhiji had immense faith in prayer, meditation, Ramanama, nature cure, Swadeshi, Swachhata, Seva, and Swavalamban, and spoke out from his personal experience. He often quoted from the Tamil poet, which said, God is the help of the helpless. Describing the essence of all prayers, on January 23rd, 1930, he said to seek first the kingdom of heaven and everything will be added unto you. For the benefit of the readers of the Indian Opinion in South Africa, in or about the year 1906, Gandhiji had written few articles under the heading Guide to Health. He was constantly experimenting with his health and diet through nature cure since his student days in London. He always said that one should eat not only to please the palate, but to keep the body going. When each organ of the sense subserves the body, and through the body the soul, its special relish disappears, and then alone does it begin in the way nature intended it to be. So now I think I'll have to stop, as I have to cut my Gandhi Katha short. There is no electricity here, but Gandhiji wrote a book called Key to Health in 1942, and that book was translated in all the languages. It reached the Western countries and was translated in several European languages. The result was that Gandhiji's book became the most popular of his writings. He writes in the preface, he says, I've never been able to understand the reason for this popularity. I had written these articles in 1906 casually. I did not attach much importance as I was still practicing on them. But perhaps the reason for the popularity is sought in the fact that I have looked upon the problems of health from the novel point of view, somewhat different from the orthodox methods adopted by doctors and Vaidyas. He said, I'm giving it a new name. It's called Key to Health. Anyone who observes the rules of health mentioned in this book will find that he has got in it a real key to unlock the gates leading him to health. He will have no need to knock at the doors of doctors and Vaidyas or traditional health practitioners from day to day. William Will Durant, the American writer, historian, and philosopher, best known for his writing The Story of Civilization, had said some inspirational words about Mahatma Gandhi, and I quote, "Not since Buddha has India so revered any man. Not since Saint Francis of Assisi has life known to history been so marked by gentleness, disinterestedness, simplicity of soul, and forgiveness of enemies. We have the astonishing phenomenon of a revolution led by a saint." I wanted to play a Gandhi Katha dhun, and I think I can still play that, which defines truth, and his definition of truth was utter as you think and act as you utter. That means there should be harmony between what you think, what you say, and what you do. Gandhiji had said that truth is God, Satya hi Parmeshwar hai, and this dhun explains the same concept in Hindi. Aankhein pavitra rakh, Satya hi tu bol. So because we have no electricity, I was afraid that we will not be able to play it. But I would like to continue by saying that coronavirus, COVID-19, is the global pandemic of our time.
साक्षात होंगे अंतर टटोल, ईश्वर साक्षात होंगे अंतर टटोल, सत्य ही है परमेश्वर बापू का बोल, सत्य ही है परमेश्वर बापू का बोल, उसी परमेश्वर की नित्य कर तू शोध, उसी परमेश्वर की नित्य कर तू शोध, आंखें पवित्र राख सत्य ही तू बोल, आंखें पवित्र राख सत्य ही तू बोल, ईश्वर साक्षात होंगे अंतर टटोल, ईश्वर साक्षात होंगे अंतर टटोल, ईश्वर साक्षात होंगे अंतर टटोल.
Coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic is the global pandemic of our times. But Spanish flu remains the deadliest pandemic in modern history, killing at least 50 million people and infecting more than 500 million. The 1918 H1N1 virus played a critical role in altering the history of India. Just like this, what we are facing right now, there was no treatment for Spanish flu. The world of medical science was in a nascent stage back then. Developing a vaccine against Spanish flu was out of the question. The first flu vaccine came on the scene in 1940, and the first antibiotic medicine came in 1928, years after Spanish flu had ravaged the human population. It was physical distancing, wearing masks, and remaining in quarantine that saved the world, particularly the developed ones back then, and that is what Gandhiji advised people to do, and that is what we need to do during the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic. Is in this crisis, we are discovering just how much control we have on our thoughts, which is very little. In a crisis, fear and anxiety starts to roam the mind, and struggling against them does only very little good, which is temporary at the best. That is why so many people turn to denial and distractions. They try to deny the fearful thoughts and turn to distractions to escape them through all kinds of virus. But there is a better way. When a crisis makes you feel stressed, meditation, yoga, pranayam, and prayer relieves the stress level. Fear and anxiety are forms of stress that become exaggerated when the world becomes very uncertain, when you feel a loss of control over the situation, and when the stress keeps repeating itself without let up. The thinking mind reacts to all these conditions. It always has, even in normal times. But a crisis brings stress into high relief, making it very capable of lowering the body's immune system. So we have no need to reinvent lifestyle. The lifestyle was already demonstrated by Gandhiji. I practice that same lifestyle, and since I also was diagnosed at COVID positive, by following Gandhian lifestyle, yoga, Ayurveda and nature cure, I have cured myself, and today is my second Gandhi Katha. After curing myself, I wanted to talk to you about more about it, but since not only the technical problems, but there is no electricity, I would like to say that now I must end today's Gandhi Katha firstly by thanking the Ambassador Srimati Ruchira Kambhoji and all her colleagues for hosting this wonderful online event, and I will end with our ancient Sanskrit shloka, which is a peace benediction for the universal welfare. The word universe is all comprehensive. We always said that we are Vishwamanava, and it is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The world is one family. We are interconnected and interrelated, and as members of the same human family, we are brothers and sisters, irrespective of caste, religion, creed, sex, etc., and must respect and pray for the safety of all the creatures of the universe. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Let all be happy. Let all be healthy. Let all see and experience auspiciousness. Let no one be suppressed or overwhelmed by grief. Om, peace, peace, peace. I once again will play a Gandhi Katha dhun as Gandhiji's blessings, who had said that peace is the only positive force which will lead us from darkness towards light. And at this point, I want to thank all of you who have joined online in this Gandhi Katha by sparing your most precious gift that you have and given me that gift of your time. I'm very, very thankful to you. So now we will sing Shubha Mangal Ho, Gandhiji's blessings.
Hare